All right, thanks everybody for joining another edition of our free webinars, our free weekly webinars. Just by show of hands, real quick, if you can click the little hand raising button just to let me know that you can see my screen here. I'm showing our Abacus Maximus advertisement. All right, cool, thank you. I'm seeing some hands go up, so that's good. So I can assume that everybody can hear me as well, so that's nice. I'm going to go ahead and lower your hands. There we go. And you've noticed that you're on mute. That is by design. Obviously, we have a lot of people in this webinar, so we want to make sure people aren't talking over each other. So if you have any questions, we will address them at the end, and you can utilize the little chat box there in your GoToMeeting window or the questions section there. It's up to you. I will do my best to get to as many questions as possible. If there's anything we can't address today, when you ask your question, I will follow up with you personally over email. So don't worry if I don't answer your question today. You will get it answered here in the next 24, 48 hours once I can get that email out to you. And today we're going to be talking about the Abacus rules, specifically for today's webinar, the civil procedure rules. But really in the end, it doesn't matter what type of rule you are invoking in our system. You do it the same way. The back-end logic behind the rule is the same as well. So we'll go over all of that. We'll show you how to do that. Before we dive into that, just a couple housekeeping items. Abacus Maximus, that's our user conference. We do it every year. For those who attended last year, I'm sure you know how amazing it was. We had a great turnout. It's a lot of fun. So make sure you head over to the AbacusMaximus.com website and get some more details on that. We're doing an early bird special, 40% off, so that's pretty good. And if you scroll through there, you'll see all the different things we're going to be doing. We're having it at Caesars Palace this year in Vegas, so that's another reason to come. You get to go to Vegas, and of course, any CLE or professional credits, you know, that you need in your professional life, those will be available there as well. So again, AbacusMaximus.com. That's our user conference, June 24th through the 26th. So we'll go ahead and dive into our system here. I am in my AbacusLaw program. So with your rules, with your civil procedure rules, with your specialty version rules, even with the rules that you create on your own, maybe just custom rules for your firm, you have to make sure that if you got them from us, you need to make sure that it's showing in your registration and that you actually have them installed. One of the big questions I get all the time is, hey, we purchased California Civil Procedure Rules and I can't find them anywhere, okay? So first let's cover that. In your AbacusLaw program, if you go to File and Register, okay, now this is an administrative function, so if you're not an admin in your system, you want to have an administrator do this, just check. Okay, once you get into your registration section, if you scroll down, you'll see a bunch of practice packs if you purchased those, like for family law or you know, personal injury. But down towards the bottom, you should see your rules. Okay, so make sure you see those there. What that tells you is that you purchased them from Abacus and that your registration says that you have them. Okay, so that's good. We want to see them there. If you don't see your state civil procedure rules or your local rules or anything like that, or even federal in this list, you need to contact us, okay? Get on our website, shoot us an email, or give us a call, 1-800-726-3339, and we can get you that information and get your registration set up with those rules. Now, if it shows that you're registered for them, but you still cannot find them in your program, then you need to make sure they are installed. It's one thing to have them registered with your account. It's another thing to actually have them installed. If we did the installation for you, they're installed, okay? But if you did it on your own, which a lot of people do, you need to double check that. So in your program, just click the little help icon on the very top menu bar, and then go to Abacus Updates, okay? Inside of your Abacus Updates, you will see anything that needs to be installed. What I recommend doing is, if this is blank, click the check for updates option in the bottom, okay? And that will do a recheck. and just make sure that you're up to date. If you do that check for updates and it puts something in the list, just click off the checkbox, okay, and click the install updates option, and that will install those rules, those practice packs, anything you need there, or anything, any add-on that you may have purchased from us. All right. So hopefully that sinks in. And if you have any issues with that, and you're lost and you're not sure, call us. Okay, we'll help you get squared away. So let's dive into rules. Usually, when you are invoking some sort of rule, obviously we're referring to event rules. Okay, you're going to do that either from your calendar, or if you don't do it from your calendar, you may do it from within the actual matter itself. It kind of depends on what rule you're invoking. Okay, if it's just like an internal personal rule, for like a new case rule or something like that, usually from the calendar is fine. But if we're talking about some sort of trial date or something like that, then a lot of times we go straight into our matter. Okay, we look up our case inside of our database, and let's see, let me pull up a new one. There we go. We open up that case, and then once we have that record open, we can go straight to our events tab right here. And in this little section, this is where we can start our rules of scheduling process. All right. A couple different ways you can do this. I personally, I'm really into my right-click menus for some reason. I don't know why, it's just habit. But I just right-click inside of this open space here, and you'll notice in my right-click menu, I have an option to add event from a rule. Okay, I like doing it this way because when I open this up, I get an entire list of every rule that I have in my menu. Okay, and a lot of times we think we're using the right code when we create our event, but when we can see that description right next to the code, that's a little bit better for me, because sometimes these codes can be very similar. Okay, the rule name, when I say code, I'm referring to the rule name column, by the way, but having that description right next to us is great. Okay, I like that. So if I were to come in here and I knew it was like my new California trial or something like that, I can, in my rules menu, just type in the word trial, and that should pull up anything that matches that keyword. So if I was going to choose this California trial, I just click done, and now I'm presented with my standard event window. Okay, basically everything I just did right there was rule specific. From here on out, I'm going to type in my information like I would any event, okay, any singular event. I still want to make sure that I am assigning it to the proper people in the office. Like if this is a California trial date, I want to make sure I got my attorneys on here. I want to make sure I got my legal staff on there that are going to be present. So make sure you do that as well, okay? But notice my what code automatically filled in for me, right? Because I chose that rule from the list, so the system knows exactly what code to apply. All right. Now my date fields, usually if this is a trial date, it's well into the future, right? So make sure in our when section, we are choosing the appropriate date. Okay, so let's say April 3rd maybe is the trial date. Okay, so I make sure I choose that, and I also make sure I put in my time. Okay, just like we normally would with any sort of calendar event. And then we put in our details, trial start. Okay, I'm sure that your notes will be much more glorious than mine, but I'm keeping it simple for training purposes. Notice down below, because I started this event from within my matter name is already filled in. Okay, so that's one of the perks of doing the rule invoking or the creating of the event from within the case. You don't have to fill that in. The system pretty much understands that you're obviously creating it for that matter, so it puts it in there for you. Okay, but you may want to set some sort of alarm as well. Don't forget The alarms directly correlates to the who code. So whoever's who codes you have in this field, that is who is getting the alarm. Okay, and by alarm, I mean that pop-up on your screen that says, hey, you got 1 hour until trial starts. All right. Once I have that information in, now I click save. But watch what happens when I click save. I get this pop-up, and it says, you are scheduling an event that is associated with a rule. Do you want the related events scheduled? All right. Well, 99% of the time, you're saying yes here, because that's the whole reason it shows that rule, and that's the whole reason we put that what code in that field. All right. So I'm going to say yes to this because we do want those related events scheduled. And then the system is going to go through a check. Okay. It basically runs through every single event in that rule set, and it looks for things like weekend dates and holidays. Okay. Here's a great example. The 18th is President's Day. Most courts are closed. That's a federal holiday. Most courts are closed on those holiday dates. So it's basically asking me to enter a preferred date. So, and usually when that happens, especially if it's some sort of filing deadline or something like that, which is what this is, because it starts with an F. Okay, notice that F prefix there, some sort of filing event. This is where I can come in here and I can say, well, let's move this to, the 7th, or actually not the 17th, because that would be a Sunday, but maybe the 15th, okay, the Friday before. So it's giving me that option to change that, okay, and then it continues on with its check. Look at all of these events that I just calendared, and all I had to do was invoke that rule, okay? I mean, there's tons, especially on your trial rules, all right? So tons of events. And we get these directly from the states. We get these from the superior courts. So, they are accurate. If for some reason you think that there is a discrepancy, please contact us so that we can take a look at that. Do not edit it on your own, okay? Again, we get these straight from the courts, straight from the state, so they should all be accurate. So let us fix that for you. But look at all of these events here that I did not have to calendar. Okay, these are all the events leading up to the trial, any events, afterwards, all getting scheduled for me. So all I have to do, once you can do a pass through this. Obviously, there's a lot, so I don't expect that you're going to read every single one of them. But, give it a glance, give it a once over, make sure you got all the right things in there. And then when you click done, now you have scheduled all of those events. And if we go to our calendar now, and we just hop into the future to April 3rd, there's my trial. Okay, there's my trial. Here's a bunch of reminders, okay, on my calendar that I can take a look at as well. And if we were to just start clicking back, look at that. We've got reminders here as well. Okay, here's another one, request in writing, refund of jury fees. Not all of these are going to apply, but it's what's built into the rule, okay? So just keep that in mind. So that was basically, and just to recap, that is adding or invoking that rule from within the case, all right? We go into our matters database, we open up our matter, we go to our events tab, we right-click, we add events from a rule, and we choose the appropriate rule from our list, all right? So that kind of all depends on you knowing exactly what rule to use, right? So the way you become familiar with the rules is actually pretty old school. You look at them, you learn what each rule has, and you do kind of like a compare and contrast. A lot of the attorneys out there are going to be able to look at the rule and know exactly what those events are because, it's, the same terminology that they're probably using when they manually enter, these types of deadlines and things like that on their calendars. So what I invite you all to do when you get into your program and you have your rules installed is to go into your file menu, click setup, and then under the setup options, about halfway down, you have an option for rules, all right? This is basically your way of going into your list of rules without actually calendaring something. All right. So here's that same list that we saw on our calendar, only we're just looking at this more for like administrative purposes. We're not going to, actually use the rule right now. But what we want to do is we want to take a gander here. And again, I'll just go back to like a trial rule. Okay. If we highlight that rule and we click the edit button, we're not going to actually edit it, but we just want to look. Okay. We want to look at this. And this is the logic built in to this rule. What do I mean by logic? I mean the event number, okay, the what code for that event, basically the event code, okay, the interval and the relative column. This is how the event gets calculated. This is how the system knows where that event is supposed to fall on the calendar. It all uses relative intervals based off of the trigger date, which is our trial date, okay? So if we look here, you can see, minus 10 days. So that would be 10 days before the trial, or 0 days. That would be, potentially a day of or something like that. It kind of just depends on your relative, okay? But if you look at these columns, it should make sense to you. Notice we've got negative numbers, we've got positive numbers, okay? So that's, positive obviously being days past the trigger date, which would be the trial date. Negative numbers mean days prior to the trial date. So you want to take a look at these and you want to make sure that this is making sense to you. All right. And then obviously there are descriptions for each individual date. Notice some of these that say in brackets, enter date when known. Okay. This is one of those things where, if something gets done and checked off the list on a certain date, potentially related events may be rescheduled. Okay. If I have, event number 2 always occurs 5 days after event number 1. Well, if I do event number 1 a day early, well, then I have the, option to recalculate event number 2 and move it a day sooner. Okay, so those are little things when you put in a new date or you mark something off as being completed, you may be presented with, questions like that from the program. Do you want to recalculate the dependent events? And you can make that choice at that time. All right. So for those of you who are wanting to become rule experts, you have to get into your rules list, okay? And you need to just become familiar with the ones that you have. So if I just type in CA right there, this just brings up all my California rules. If you're in a different state, no worries, just type in your state code and it should pull up those as well. But you see, here's one, California, hearing of motion, okay? Judgment granted. If we look at these types of events, if we click edit, here's one that only has about 17 different events in it. Okay, same rules apply though for all of our logic, right? We've got our intervals, we've got our relative to, okay, and the relative to basically means which event the interval is relevant to. So you can see here, file serve notice of intention to move for new trial. Okay, that's 15 days relative to event number 3. Okay, so that means whatever day event number 3 falls on, 15 days afterwards is event number 4. Okay, if we look at this one, event number 10, file motion to strike. That is 15 days after event number 9. So that means whatever day this number 9 event, okay, prevailing party to serve a memorandum of costs, whatever day that falls on, 15 days after is going to be event number 10. These are editable, okay, but again, you should not be editing your civil procedure rules as they are shown in your system when you get them from us. If you look at this and you think that it is incorrect, you need to contact us. Let us take a look at it because, again, we get them from the state. All right. Now, you can do things like add a reminder. Like maybe I want to add an additional reminder to this list. Just something that tells me, maybe something's coming up and I just want to be, have one extra reminder in there for my own benefit. That you can do. There is an add button in the bottom left corner. Okay, you can click add and you can fill in your reminder information. Okay, and give it a little description. Reminder of events. I'm sure yours will be much more creative than mine. But when you are doing that, the interval column here, see where it says interval in that field? And then I have the relative to box here. That is how you set your interval and your relative columns. Okay, so if I was doing just a friendly reminder here for event number 15, maybe I want it to fall one day before event number 15. Well, then I just make my interval 1, set my type to days as opposed to court days, weeks, months, quarters, years. Okay, and then I say relative to event number 15. Okay, now whatever day event number 15 falls on, one day before, I'm going to have a reminder saying that that event is coming up the next day. All right, and then as far as automatically moving events that may fall on a weekend by calculation, you can choose to automatically have the system move them to Friday or move them to the Monday before, whichever you prefer. Or if you choose the top option, which is the default, use system option settings, it basically is going to ask you. Okay, it's going to ask you to choose. So when I click save there or done, okay, that adds my reminder to my list with my proper interval and my proper relative. Okay, now one tip I do want to give you here, for your civil procedure rules, my tip to you, don't edit this rule. Okay, even if you're just adding reminders, what I always recommend is cloning the rule. Okay, make a copy of it, all right, and call it, CA Judgment 1, or, I don't know, give it, some sort of name that's going to stand out to you that you can use later, and use the clone. Reason being is, if California updates this rule and we get that notification, so we update ours and then we send an update to you, if you edited this, the original, and you install that update, it's going to basically get rid of any edits that you made. It's going to override that with the new rule. So if you are adding extra reminders for your own benefit, make sure you clone the rule and add those reminders to the clone and just use that. Okay, that way it doesn't wipe away your work. Okay, so just a little pro tip there. So, the real takeaway, I think, from today's session, and then we'll take some questions, is 2 ways you can invoke these rules. You can start out on your calendar, okay, by just going out to that trial date, April 17th, and then just right-click in on the time and selecting Add Events from a rule and choosing the appropriate rule, and then just following the prompts and the steps. The other option, of course, is to go straight into the matter record itself, okay, and choosing the matter. The reason I like to do it from within the matter, again, if you remember, is because when I add an event from this Events tab in my matter, the system automatically links it to that case for me. I don't have to remember to do that. If I do it from the calendar, the system does not know, okay, what event you want to do it for. So you need to remember to link that matter to the event that you're creating. That's very important, okay, very big distinction there. Or else you end up with, you get 150 events on your calendar and nobody said what matter they're for. That wouldn't be good, okay, so make sure you do that. Now for our administrators or for people that just want to learn more about what those rules entail, what individual events are within those rules, for those, just go to File, Setup, Rules. Here's your list of rules. If you're just taking a peek, just highlight the rule, click Edit, and there you can read the descriptions, you can read the intervals, and things like that. If you want to edit anything, make sure you clone, give it a new name, okay, a different name, and then edit the clone. Okay. I hope everybody found that informative. Rules can be a real lifesaver. Definitely can save you some calendaring time. So all of our calendaring people out there, this is rules are the way to go. Okay. So just make sure that you are, doing your best to understand them. Create your own little test rules. That's a great way to learn. Just create test rules for yourself and play around with those. You can always delete them. Okay. Anytime you delete, let's say I have a rule that has 10 events in it, and then I delete one of those events off my calendar, the system notices. It knows that there's that's from a rule, and it's going to ask you, do you want to delete the rest of the events? So even if you made a mistake, okay, and you invoked the wrong rule, right, and it put 100 events on the calendar, and you're like, oh, what am I going to do? I can't delete these 100 events. It's going to take forever. Just delete one of them, okay, and it will ask you, do you want to delete the rest? And you just say yes to that, and you can start all over. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and open it up to questions real quick. I don't see any yet. Feel free to use that chat box there to type out a question or to use the questions box. Either way, I can monitor both. And while I'm waiting just to see if anything comes in, I will just do some more housekeeping items while they come in. APC, the Abacus Private Cloud. For those of you who are on it already, you definitely know the benefits. Basically, access from anywhere to all of your programs, including your AbacusLaw system, your accounting system, your Office programs, so Word, Excel, Outlook, all that good stuff, and you get it in our secure private network. So if you are unfamiliar with APC, definitely go to our website. I'm going to pull it up here for you just so everybody can see it. Okay, let me pull this over one more time. Again, if you just go to our AbacusNext.com website and you click on the link that says Buy Solution, okay, Abacus Private Cloud. Click on that. There's a little bit of info there, but if you just fill out this basic information, we'll send you all the info you need to know. Here's some financial breakdowns of things like that. A little demo video that gives you kind of an idea of how it works and all that good stuff. So, and some facts for you. So I think that would be definitely something, if you're looking to move up to the cloud, great solution for you for those who aren't already there. Give me just one sec. It looks like we have a question. Let me see if I can pull this up here. All right, good questions. Let's see. Okay, first question. I'm just going down the list as I see them, so I apologize if you were waiting. Let's see. Abacus is linked to my Microsoft Calendar. When I delete entries on Abacus, they do not delete from my Microsoft Calendar. Okay, so here is the deal with that. Microsoft and Abacus can be synced two different ways, okay? File, setup, well actually let me take you into it through the synchronize method, okay? If you look where my little breadcrumb trail is, I went to File, Synchronize, Outlook Sync, then Setup, okay? If you look under your setup options for your syncing, there is a tab called Events. My guess is that yours is set up to only transfer one way, or potentially transfer or set up not to sync at all. Okay, it's going to be one of those. You need to do it both ways if you're wanting Abacus to delete things off of that calendar. All right, so you can't just have it going one way, basically. Always, generally, my rule of thumb when it comes to calendar usage, if you're syncing over to Outlook, is you want Abacus Calendar to be your primary point of data entry. Why is that? It's because Abacus Calendar is set up for law firms. Okay, you link events to a matter. Outlook was not designed for law firms. So if you're creating your events inside of Outlook and you sync it into Abacus, Abacus doesn't know what matter that's for because Outlook doesn't have a way to designate that. Okay, so you then have to go in and you have to, modify that event once it's been synced to actually link it to your, the appropriate matter. So I always recommend making Abacus your primary point of data entry for calendar. But this is where you want to go, Carla, who asked that question. Make sure that you have the appropriate settings set here as far as sync method goes. Okay, let's see. Can an event be triggered from another area or entry in Abacus or only the what codes? All rule events are triggered based off of what code, okay? I use the right-click menus to trigger them, but technically, if you were just on the calendar and you opened up a random new event window, if you just so happen to use a what code that was also assigned to a rule, the system will catch that and it will ask you if you want to calendar the related events. And then at that point, you could say yes or no. So remember I was saying, 99% of the time, we're going to say yes to that because we know what we're doing. But sure, there's maybe some sort of scenario in which it just so happens the code is the same, the one that you want to use. Maybe you just want to use that for reporting purposes on your calendar, but you don't want to schedule all the other events. If that's the case, then just say no. So hopefully that answers your question, Samantha. Let's see, how do we add local trial rules when calendaring with the California Civil Rules so the correct dates will populate? So you have to do it one after the other, Marcella. You have to do it one after the other. So first thing you're going to be doing is calendaring your California rule, then your local rule. So it's basically you do one, then you do the other, okay? So it doesn't automatically, they don't merge like automatically for you, okay? So make sure you're, still invoking that local, Superior Court rule afterwards. Okay, let's keep moving down the line here. We've got some good questions. I just want to try and get to as many as possible. Let's see, is there a way to know when updates to, oh, good question. So the question here from Linda is there a way to know when updates to rules come in, which rules have been updated? So every person who is an administrator in the program should be receiving administrative alerts when they log into the system for the first time that day, okay? There is underneath your user preferences, assuming you haven't turned this off, there is a checkbox that says get admin alerts from Abacus. If you want to get, actual updates on things like that, other than us just sending it to the updater, this little checkbox here, if you turn that on, that will ensure that you get those updates. We also do send out emails to anybody who, to the primary contact on your account with us. For anybody that has rules, we'll send an email out that basically says, these rules have been updated, and it tells you exactly what rule it is in that update. But the surefire way is to turn on this admin alerts option in your user preferences, and if you're an admin, you'll get that alert when you log into the program. And then also, you can always just periodically just come up to help, Abacus updates, click that check for updates option right there, and it will run a check for you there as well. So hopefully that answers your question, Linda. Let's see, is there a way to time multiple events at one time instead of timing an event one by one? Example, when we schedule trials. Well, you can always, so basically, let me go to my calendar here. Timing is a big thing because when we look at an event, okay, I have this little play button right there, okay? And if I try and double click, notice it doesn't open up. It doesn't give me two windows, okay? It's just giving me one window. So for an event, you cannot do that, okay? Because it figures if you're starting a timer on one project, you're not gonna have a timer going on another project, at least not for that individual user, okay? So for events, as of right now, no. Now on notes, you can do that. That is different. Okay, so you can have, multiple note windows open. See that? How I have multiple note windows going, different timers going on each one. So you can do it there, but no, not as of right now, not in events. That's kind of like a fail-safe that we have in the system that just, kind of prevents a single user from having, multiple timers going on an event. Let's see. So is there any way to mark an event off calendar so it does not show up on a report? If you open up an event window under the status dropdown right here, you have your usuals, done, not done. And then it looks like I have a redundant one there for some reason. That must be my mistake. But you do have one called off calendar. Okay, so if you set it to off calendar, that's exactly what it does. And then I think by default, your calendar reports do not include off calendar reports. I think that's a system default. But if for some reason it is still showing on the calendar, you may just want to look at the query you're using on that report and just maybe modify that. And, you could probably change it there if it is showing that logic in the query. And if you are, if you're new to queries and how to customize them for reporting, check your reference guide. We do have a whole section in there on the query builder, and that should take care of you. And just another little pro tip for anybody who's curious about the reference guide, whenever you have your program open, just hit the F1 key on your keyboard, and that will open up your interactive searchable reference guide for your program. Okay, let's see. What about when you find dates that are not considered a holiday? So holidays are a little bit different because, we basically in our system, we just do the standard, holidays. They're usually all federal holidays, and they're just the standard ones. We understand that, sometimes there's local holidays and things like that. You have the ability to set up your holidays in your program, okay? If you go to File, Set Up, Holidays, okay, you can go in here and you can add, edit, delete different holidays, okay? And you can do these for years and years out. I think by default, when your program gets installed, it does 8 years of standard holidays. If you see something wrong in here, like let's say, we had Columbus Day as 10/9 or something like that, you can edit it yourself, okay? I mean, we always appreciate, people telling us, hey, this is wrong. So please keep doing that. But don't feel like you need to wait on us to change that. You can go right into File, Set Up Holidays, and make your edits right here. Okay. Okay. See, some of these questions, just so you know, if I'm skipping over them because I'm going to follow up in an email because I just need a little bit more info from you. So don't be alarmed if I'm not reading yours out loud. I promise I will follow up via email. Let's see, what is the best way to print all calendar events for a specific email? The quick and easy, down and dirty way is to just open up. I'm sorry, it was I misspoke. It was best way to print all calendar events for a specific matter, not an email. So you just open up that matter, go to that events tab, and you've got a print button. And when you click print, it's going to ask you, do you want to do just that single one that you're highlighting, or do you want to do the full? Or if I had individual ones tagged, this would be highlighted and I could choose tag. So that is, kind of the quickest way to print one for an individual matter. Obviously there are some calendar reports that you can run directly from your calendar by using this little printer icon in the top right corner. Notice it says print calendars, and then once you choose, you could create like a query that only prints for a specific matter. But then you got to get into your query editor and you got to, make changes there and stuff like that. Best, easiest way to do it, just go straight to the matter, click on the Events tab and click that print button and do it that way. Let's see. Oh, here's a good one about SOL, so statute of limitations. So the question is, when entering the SOL and the SOL reminders, does Abacus calculate the SOL date from the accident date, or do I have to do the SOL calculation and enter the SOL myself? An SOL always is triggered from the injury date or the accident date, or whatever that trigger event is. What starts the timer, right? That's the way I always think about it. How does the timer start? So if my client comes to me, today and says, I got into an accident, last week, right, on Monday, on the 4th or something, well, then I know that my SOL timer started, on the 4th. So I would come in here and I would go to my, the 4th on my calendar, right click, add my event from a rule, okay, go find my SOL rule, whichever one it may be. You can see I've got quite a few in here. PI, here's one, maybe it's a 1 year, a 2 year. But when you utilize this rule, watch what happens. I'll just do this for a random matter. Okay, when I click save, notice it's calendaring my reminders for me. Okay, see these dates, how it went out a year? Okay, so it's going to do all of that, all the reminder calculation and everything for me. So if we look back 11/4, okay, I'm sorry, it wasn't 11/4. Either way, I don't remember what date I clicked on there, but it'll do all the calculation and reminders for you. So you shouldn't have to do it. And the SOL rule, it works like this. It does, if it's a 1 year, then it's going to give you a 6-month reminder, a 3-month reminder, 1 month, 1 week, 1 day. Okay, and then just kind of extrapolate that out for 2 year, 3 year, 4 year, and so on and so forth. So that's kind of the gist of that rule. So you shouldn't have to create any reminders unless you wanted to have some extras in there. Let's see. Let me see here. Is there a way? Oh, yeah. So, okay. This was back to the timing of multiple events. I mean, you can do that. You can have the windows open for your timers, but the thing is you just want to be mindful, especially if you're the one doing the work. You want to be mindful of pausing and stopping your timers on your event windows and your note windows as you switch back and forth between work, especially if you're doing billable time. If I'm taking 2 hours to prepare for a deposition for one matter, and then 30 minutes in I stop for 30 minutes to take a phone call about a different matter, I don't want to keep that timer running, right? I want to make sure I pause that. So just be diligent with your timers. One thing I will tell you is you can start, especially in your note windows, you can set your note windows to automatically start your timers for you so that you don't need to press that play button every time. By default, out of the box, you have to press the play button for the timer to start, okay? If you want to set it so it automatically starts every time you open a new note window, just click the little gear down there at the bottom. That's the note settings window, and there's a checkbox that says start timer upon opening the window. Okay, so that way you don't have to remember. I think it's good to have a timer going, whether you bill hourly or not. It's good just for productivity reasons, and it just, I'm forgetful. So, one less thing I got to remember. Okay, let's go through. Let's see if we have anything in the chat box. We don't. So I think that was all the questions. That was a lot of the questions. There's still, 5 or 6 I'm going to follow up over email. So we'll go ahead and do that later today. If you don't get an email from me, well, you will. You'll get an email from me at the latest by end of business tomorrow. Give me a little time to ask follow-up questions for those people and get my answers formulated. But I definitely appreciate everybody's time. Don't forget, you can always go to our website, AbacusNext.com, and you will see on there under the resources, link, there is our list of, and I'll pull this back over for you again, our list of upcoming webinars. Okay, so make sure you're clicking those links and you're joining those webinars. Got a good one starting up pretty soon. Contingency billing. That's a good one. Next one's going to be rules-based calendaring, so similar to what we did today. But here's another one there on flat fee billing. Pretty cool too. So join those. And then also, if you are scheduling training using our online scheduler, which we always recommend, you can go to our main website, click on the resources link, click the option for schedule training. And this is really cool. This is something new that we added, so I want to just show people this. When it opens up the scheduler and you choose your appropriate program, next to the learning sequences, we will put a notification on there if there is a webinar on that same topic that's going to be for free. Okay, so if you look at this, January 29th, so actually we'll do, February 26th, automated form generation. Okay, if you need that training right now, you can schedule it for $197 an hour. Okay, or use your time that you've saved in your account for it. Or if you can hold out until the 26th, you can get it for free. So we're very open about that. So always make sure you check when you're scheduling your training to see if there's an upcoming webinar that may be useful for you. May save you some money, save you some time, and we're happy to do that. If not, you can schedule it, and we'll just we either bill you for it later, or we just take it off whatever your professional services hours are that you have saved. So again, I appreciate everybody's time. Thank you so much for joining me. My name is Scott Heiss. I'm the senior trainer at Abacus. If you have any questions about training, please email training@abacusnext.com. Thanks again. Have a great week.